I'm working in a very small team, so it's key for us to automate everything we can. And it's also fun. Drupaling is fun again. That's what I would say. It was fun back in the day, especially with Drupal 6, it was big fun. And with Drupal 7, it was big fun too. And then it got a bit struggly with 8 and 9, but now it's fun again, and I'm very happy for that.
Well, Adam, it's great to see you again.
We met again.
Yeah, thanks. It's we met for the first time at DrupalCon Vienna, and we were both waiting for coffee. But I recognized you because you had been posting about something pretty cool that you had been working on, called the DrupalCon Vienna Personal Calendar Builder. Can you maybe just tell us a little bit about what that is?
It's a simple website with pure HTML and JavaScript that allows you to pick your favorite sessions from the schedule and then download them as a calendar file that you can later import to your favorite calendar.
Very cool. And so what inspired you to create that?
I had an initial version of it back in the summer, which was built for an electronic festival, just as out of curiosity. And as soon as I saw the DrupalCon schedule on events.drupal.org, I realized that there's no way to save the schedule or download it in any way. And then I had the idea, hey, what if I transform this already existing thing to work with the DrupalCon schedule?
Very cool. And you mentioned that it's pure HTML, but are there any sort of like dependencies or other projects that you pulled in to help build that?
No, not at all. It was fully vibe coded with Cursor, and it's vanilla JavaScript. So it was also sort of a vibe coding experiment, kind of how far I can get without writing actual code. And pretty far, I would say.
Very cool. Was there anything that surprised you about maybe basic things that Cursor got wrong, or like maybe more complicated things that it did actually pretty well?
I'm using Cursor for a while now, so I would say it's not surprising me anymore, but I'm always surprised how well it's doing its job. It is pretty creative, so it has great taste for UI, I would say. Without any mockups, it just invented the whole UI with minimal instructions. So that is always surprising. It doesn't see the results. It's not a human, so shouldn't have taste really, but it somehow still has pretty good taste according to my taste.
That's very cool. So, I mean, obviously in this case, you were using it to produce pure HTML, but what other kinds of, I guess, technologies have you used Cursor to help you generate?
Well, so this calendar builder application uses a JSON file as its data source. So the first task was to somehow transform the schedule on the website into this JSON format. And that was done with a small Python script, which was also vibe coded with Cursor. And it's pretty good in Python. It's good in vanilla JavaScript and in Python. I'm struggling more with actual Drupal development. Somehow it's too complicated and you need to give it a lot of context to steer it the right direction. and makes a lot of mistakes. So if something surprises me, still it is that how much it's struggling with Drupal.
Are there particular kinds of things it tends to get wrong in Drupal?
Yeah, it often uses outdated things. So it seems it lacks recent Drupal knowledge. Like, for example, it struggles with recipes in my experience. Creating recipes is hard for it. And even though I plug in MCP, Drupal as an MCP server, I need to clearly instruct it to use the tools that are exposed. For example, to make config changes. Because if I'm not instructing it to use the MCP tools, it will start creating YAML files from scratch. And that goes sideways very often.
Interesting. So I guess going back a little bit to the personal calendar builder, after you started posting about that in the DrupalCon Europe channel in Drupal Slack, there was a ton of engagement in that thread. So there was, I think, almost 100 replies in there. Did the sort of degree or, the strength of the reaction surprise you?
Yes, absolutely. It surprised me. I'm close friends with Balint Bruce, the Canvas guy. And I showed it to him at first and asked him if it's worthy to post to the general public. And he said, definitely. And I had doubts because it's just a simple tool. I thought many other developers already had the same idea, or maybe something similar already exists. I just don't know about it. And I was surprised how well it was received, how useful people thought it is. They also provided really good feedback and had meaningful feature requests, so to say. So yes, I was surprised.
Yeah, what are some of the feature requests that you thought were interesting that way?
So at first it was just a plain list, just like the schedule on the website. Each session was below each other in just one column. And one of the first requests was to be able to see sessions that are in parallel side by side, so that you can spot the conflicts at first sight. That was a good request. And then someone asked for PWA integration so that they can add it to their home screen on their phones. And there were a few bug reports about time zones and the validity of the ICS file. Mostly that.
Yes, people who know me will know that I've done a lot of work in sort of events and, all of those things within the Drupal space. So definitely issues around time zone, calendar device compatibility, the iCalendar spec. Those are, definitely going to be sort of familiar pain points to anybody who's spent any time working in the Drupal sphere. Were there people that actually sort of made kind of like pull requests to help move some of those features along?
No, there were a few pull requests to include newly added sessions. Because as I mentioned, this is not in connection with the website. Basically, what I did, I saved the HTML page to my local computer and then showed it to Cursor and instructed it to create a Python script that can convert it to a JSON file. And so any sessions that were added after this conversion happened were not present in the calendar builder. So a few people made pull requests to include their sessions that were added later, boths in particular. But other than that, someone cloned not cloned, but what's the word for it? Forked. Yeah, someone forked the repo pretty quickly. I believe someone from the DrupalCon Nara team. And then someone also reached out to me in private saying that, oh, this is so fantastic. We want to have it for Nara. And I was able to quickly make a Nara data source. So now there is a Nara version of it.
Very cool. And so are they going to use the same approach of having kind of like the JSON or the, what is it, Python script to extract the data?
I'm not sure. I used the Python script to convert the Nara schedule to this JSON file, and it's also available on the same GitHub repo. I have no info if they ended up using it or made any modifications with that.
Okay. And I think Fran from the Drupal Association also in that thread was talking about maybe for DrupalCon Chicago, trying to actually have some kind of a feed that the tool could pull directly from, as opposed to having to sort of run a script on top of.
Yes, there were some discussions about integrating this into the events website itself. But there's no real progress to my knowledge with that. That's definitely a way of improving it to, make it dynamic instead of this static data reading approach. There's a couple ways this could be done. Like one is to have a JSON feed created with views. You can easily create one with views, and then somehow on the front end, use JavaScript to parse that JSON feed and then render the whole HTML that way. Or another idea would be something similar to the table of contents module. The TOC module exposes a block that can dynamically create a table of contents on your page with JavaScript. Something like that could work as well. Just you could configure your selectors, right? So this is the selector for the event title. This is the selector for the date and the time, selector for the description. And then the JavaScript would parse the HTML that way.
Right. Yeah. So I can't remember if we talked about this in Vienna, but one of the projects that I work on is called the Event Platform, which is really meant for sort of Drupal camps or similar kinds of events where you have kind of users submitted session proposals that then can get judged, some of them accepted, eventually put into a schedule and presented. For that one, I took the approach of using the flag module to give people the opportunity to go through and sort of pick which ones they want to see, and then giving them the ability to just sort of see the ones they've flagged in a view. But it would be interesting to see if there's a simple way to sort of, in the same way that you've allowed the download as a calendar file, to use something like, I think there is a views iCal feed module that might be useful there. To allow people to integrate that with their calendars, maybe even in a dynamic way, so that it's not even just a static file, but it could be almost like exposed, maybe with some authentication or something, so that if they go through and change which sessions that they've liked, or even if they get updated on the website themselves, that those changes would actually flow through to the calendar that they have as well. So,
yeah. So one way of doing this in the Drupal way is with flag, as you mentioned. But for that, you need users to be logged in. And this simpler JavaScript-based solution doesn't require any registration. That's one advantage of it. You can do it with Flag, and there's a contributed module for generating iCal feeds with views. So if you combine that with Flag, you have this custom list. And then you can also expose it as a webcal feed. So it automatically updates as the nodes update in Drupal. One thing you have to solve is to make these webcal URLs kind of private in one way. And to my knowledge, the webcal protocol, if it's a protocol even, doesn't have any sort of authentication built in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something you need to tackle with something like a long hashed URL, similarly to what Google Docs does or something like that.
Got it. Interesting. So you already mentioned that the Nara team, DrupalCon Nara team, has reached out and they've forked the project. It sounds like anybody going to DrupalCon Nara will hopefully have that. Would it be as a companion site, probably to the main events.drupal.org, or do you have any idea how that's being used?
No, I have no idea. They reached out and we had talks with a person. I forgot the name. Nicole from the Nara team, and I created this proof of concept for her, but I have no news after that. So we will see.
Has anybody from any other sort of Drupal events expressed interest in potentially adopting this?
No, not yet. And there were some comments about integrating it with events.drupal.org itself. But for that to happen, we need to turn it into a proper Drupal module first so that they can use it the normal Drupal way. Because now it's just a standalone thing, simple HTML. So yeah, there's that. That's the only real interest, I would say.
Okay. So maybe pivoting a little bit, what were your kind of overall impressions of DrupalCon Vienna?
Oh, this was the first time in 10 years I attended a DrupalCon. Last time I was at DrupalCon, it was in Munich. That was 2012, I think. It's the same event, the same community. I saw familiar faces. I even met some friends from back in the day. It got a bit more corporate-y, I would say, but that's not a negative. I think Drupal kind of grew up the same way as we grew up. I started Drupaling in my early 20s and now I'm 46. So yeah, these are just normal changes. We are now dancing with the elephant, so to say, and then you can feel this in the exhibition area. And also the presentations are much more professional. The whole organizing is much more professional. It's a grown-up tech and a grown-up conference.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, in 20 years, the web itself has changed quite a lot as well, right? So it only makes sense that Drupal needs to adapt to better suit its environment for sure. Are there any things that stand out to you in terms of how Drupal is different today, or maybe being part of the Drupal community is different today than it was when you started?
That's an interesting question. It was just a hobby for me at first. So I was working as a Slash developer full time with ActionScript. And in my free time with friends, we had a local NGO organizing like bike parades and things like that. And for that, we needed a CMS. First, we used PHP Nuke, but it was very clumsy and not so flexible. And then someone from the biker community showed me Drupal. But it was just hobby at first. And I couldn't even believe that someone is a Drupaler as a full-time position, right? And then I attended DrupalCon Szeged in 2008, I believe. And that's the first time that I realized that some folks are doing this as a job, and that it's certainly possible to be a full-time Drupaler. And that's very different now, today. It's obvious that being a Drupalist is a profession. It's its own job. It's not IT, or it's not just general web development. Drupal development is its own job, basically. And that's very different from 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I know, so for myself, I also started off building websites in Flash. There are still things that I miss about sort of, that interface and being sort of very animation driven, as well as sort of like that idea of nested timelines, and some of the cool things you could do with that was pretty interesting. But I also started using Drupal. The very first site that I built was also for kind of a local nonprofit. And I kind of feel like a lot of people sort of, I want, for lack of a better word, our vintage of, Drupal users got started to some degree or another with either a local small business, but a lot of us with those kind of nonprofit or NGOs. And I wonder if, today there are other tools that those nonprofits are tending to use. I mean, probably for a long time, a lot of people would have been using, Wix or Squarespace, maybe with Drupal CMS. And as we start to see probably services that, make that even easier to adopt, that could become more of an on-ramp for Drupal. But it's interesting how I think the need to scratch that itch of just sort of having a website that is a credible presence for some kind of a small organization without a lot of money, the tools for doing that, I think, have evolved. And like you say, that, Drupal has shifted focus a little bit to sort of be a little bit more upmarket. But I think it because of that, it needs to probably work harder to make sure that we're bringing more people into the community, right? Because
Yeah, definitely. That's a challenge. I think since the switch from 7 to 8, that was a big breaking point, I would say. It was necessary, painful, but necessary, especially in hindsight. I think a lot of the community vanished at that point. From 7 to 8, it was a big jump, and it was hard to justify, all the proper developer things for these folks who just wanted a simple website with minimal effort and at low cost. It was hard to explain why Composer is necessary, and you had to spend more time in the command line. There was a lot to relearn from 7 to 8. There was no real migration path, I would say. So that was painful, but it was necessary. And And then we kind of lost these simple, we just need a small website at minimal cost to a number of different things. Technology evolved, the web itself evolved a lot. All these SaaS products promising simple solutions quickly appeared. And Drupal itself wanted to move to more professional and corporate areas. And yeah, I would say we lost a lot of the audience, so to speak. But we are back now with CMS. That's my feeling. And CMS was a good move. And now we can, again, with a few clicks, we can have very appealing and complex sites.
I 100% agree about CMS. The other thing that you've already mentioned that I think hopefully bodes well for Drupal in its future is also AI. So you talked about using Cursor for vibe coding, but there's also been, quite a lot of innovation with Drupal around the adoption of AI for a lot of different things. So not just writing code, but also doing things like site building, creating content, creating layouts is a thing that we saw in DrupalCon Vienna. How much have you dabbled in integrating AI with Drupal in other ways beyond just writing code?
I'm obsessed with the AI initiative, and I'm amazed by these guys and how fast they are moving. I love the fact that they joined forces very quickly. So as soon as ChatGPT took off, very soon there were a couple modules in parallel doing very similar things. And I really like that they joined forces very quickly. And there is just now one way of doing it. I think that's a real strength in Drupal, that there's no things doing the same thing in different ways in parallel, but there is the Drupal solution for something. Like CCK was the first of such a thing, that there's no multiple content type builder plugins. Like in WordPress, you have multiple CCK-like plugins. In Drupal, there's one way of doing it. And this very quickly happened with AI and AI-related things. And ever since then, they are moving fast pace and in the good directions, I would say. It's pretty easy to build fairly complicated things these days with automators. MCP is great. I really like the fact that I can just hook it up into Cloud Desktop, for example, and start chatting about my content. It's really good in site building as well. So, for example, I can just show example content to Cloud while it's hooked up with MCP and Drupal. And in a vanilla installation, it'll just analyze the example content and make a proposal for the content types, the fields, the taxonomies. And when I'm happy with the plan, I can just say, okay, well, execute it. And it does the job. And I can just preview it in the Drupal UI. If I don't like it, I can revert it with a simple config import. So it's lovely. I think a lot of the work from the past years is now getting paid, really. The config management system is something unique to Drupal, and LLMs love it. It's the YAML format is something they love, and they can understand the structure of the site very easily just by reading the YAML files. I'm not sure any other CMS has that. So Drupal is lucky in a way in this LLM era because a lot of things are already there in Drupal. It's AI ready, so to speak. It's
I think
AI ready out of the box.
I think that's a great point. As you say, we did undertake some fairly ambitious things, particularly around that sort of difficult 7 to 8 migration. But as you say, it feels like we're starting to bear the fruit of the investments that were made to really give Drupal a very carefully thought out infrastructure, and things like the configuration management and all of those things have really set us up for success in a future that back then nobody really could have foreseen in terms of how it would end up being something that allows things like LLMs to more easily understand how a site is structured and how it could be manipulated to suit specific use cases and some of those things. I wonder, do you have any predictions around, what's going to be kind of the next big thing in AI, or maybe the next way that you'd like to see Drupal able to leverage AI to help make, let's say, marketers' lives easier?
Canvas, definitely. Canvas is something I'm looking forward to, especially with combined with these LLM tools and MCP and tools exposed with MCP. There will be interesting things to do with Canvas. Just, you can draw something up on a napkin and then the LLM will be able to implement it in Canvas, and you just have to review it. Yeah, I think it will be interesting to see the site templates and how those unfold with all these LLM capabilities and Canvas, like how quickly you can create site templates, or how quickly you can transform a site template or tailor it to your needs with an LLM. Yeah, these are interesting things, and I don't see much competition in this area. So I don't see any other CMS being so well prepared for these LLM integrations.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, anytime I hear some of the people that are sort of core contributors to the AI initiative talking about, the things that get them excited, inevitably it's contagious. And, I end up being very excited, not just about AI and Drupal, but really about how well that, hopefully will inspire more people to sort of jump on board and become part of the community and contribute to the ongoing sort of success and health of the community as well. So it's definitely a really exciting time right now. And I hope that continues to spread, outside of just the bubble that as a Drupal community that we live in, but that more people can be exposed to that. And I guess the contagion can spread even further in terms of getting people excited about Drupal again.
Yeah, me too. I'm also playing a lot with Anita lately to see how that can be hooked into Drupal, and MCP is a great help there as well. So it's pretty easy to create a workflow in Anita and just configure Drupal with MCP and then give these MCP tools to the agent in Anita. And so you can make things like a workflow reads incoming emails, maybe support emails, and then the agent can check actual configuration in Drupal and explain things and reply in an email to the support request, things like that. I'm working in a very small team, so it's key for us to automate everything we can. And yeah, it's also fun. Drupaling is fun again. That's what I would say. It was fun back in the day, especially with Drupal 6, it was big fun. And with Drupal 7, it was big fun too. And then it got a bit struggly with 8 and 9, but now it's fun again, and I'm very happy for that.
That's really awesome. Do you have any upcoming Drupal events you're planning to attend?
We will see. Maybe Dev Days in Athens, because I really like Dev Days. It has a different atmosphere from DrupalCon. It's still nostalgic. Dev Days is still these old, we are there for the community kind of feeling, not so corporate. But I also would like to attend the next DrupalCon Europe. We will see how we will go budget-wise.
Yeah, I can relate to both of those. I mean, I absolutely have loved the opportunities when I've been able to attend Dev Days. Personally, I would love to see somebody try and get a similar concept going on this side of the Atlantic, in North America as well. But yeah, all the Dev Days I've been to in Europe have been phenomenal. And I agree, it's a very different sort of vibe and spirit to the conversations. So that's always good. But yeah, would love to get to DrupalCon Rotterdam next year as well, if the stars align for it.
I was lucky to attend Camp back in 2016, the Bay Area Drupal Camp, and that felt very similar to Dev Days. Similar to that. I'm not sure how Dev Days is going now, but back then it was really good.
Yeah, I've only ever been able to attend Badcamp virtually because it's, other side of the continent from me, but hopefully I'll be able to get there in person someday. So anyway, Adam, it was great to catch up with you again. Hopefully we can talk again in person next year at one of those events. But, until then, I'm sure I'll be seeing you in Drupal Slack.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great talking to you. Yep.
Great talking to you. Bye.